Hey, welcome back. Today I want to do something very quick. I'm not normally the kind of person that needs to be talked into buying a tool. And I've been eyeing a track saw for quite some time. But 2.5 years ago, I bought these clamps, and these are called Progrip edge guide clamps from Amazon. I got them for about 80 bucks. I checked the price today and they have gone up. They're about $115 on Amazon today. But it comes in a pack of 3. There's a 50-inch, there's a 36-inch, and there's a 24-inch. And honestly, for this price, it's just been impossible for me to convince myself to go out and invest in a track saw, because this makes cutting with your circular saw so easy and makes breaking down a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Here I've got some 3/4 inch birch ply. And it makes breaking it down by yourself just super easy. So I just want to go through it. Like I said, it comes in a pack of 3. I lost the 24-inch because I did drop it from a significant height and it did break. But these two I've had for 2.5 years. I don't use the 36 very often, but I use this 50-inch every day, multiple times a day. And it is a great little tool. And basically, these are all adjustable. So even though I don't have the 24-inch one, I can adjust this one down to 24 inches if I wanted to. And it's super easy to apply. When I buy myself, I'll take the clamp side and I'll put the clamp side away from me and I'll just stretch the thing out. And then I'll lay it on here, and then I can move this locking end in to be the correct size. Once I've done that, I can switch this back around. And now I've got a clamp that it's not going anywhere. And it's going to work perfectly for cutting with my circular saw, so I can trim these things down before I take them to my table saw. Now, depending on what I'm cutting, I may sometimes give myself like 1/8 of an inch play, just so that I can take it to the table saw later and really sneak up on the perfect cut that I want. But I'm telling you that this thing, I've cut plenty of times with these guides where I didn't give myself that 1/8 of an inch because I didn't have room on the sheet, and it came out perfectly anyways. But so anyways, let's get to it. What I'm going to do is I have a really cheap skill saw. Strangely, out of all the tools that I own and all the very nice tools that I own, I have had this skill saw for probably 20 years, and it just keeps going. So I haven't bought a fancy saw. It's 1.5 inches from the inner edge of my blade to the edge of my guide. And if you don't know what yours is, you can just cut a sample piece of wood and measure it, and then you know it for the future. So if I'm cutting a 20-inch piece out of this sheet, then I just set my clamp at 21.5 inches. And then when I'm done cutting, I know that what I'm going to be left with is a 20-inch piece of ply. So let's do that. I'm going to show you, if you haven't done it before, or you are having trouble with it, I'm going to show you how to cut a 4x8 piece of plywood all by yourself. For those of you who don't have shop hands and stuff, as long as you can get somebody to help you put it on your workbench, and I've had somebody help me put 3 of them on here. So as long as you can get some somewhere flat, we're in good shape. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description to these on Amazon where you can pick them up. And I'm telling you, they're worth every penny, I promise you. And they'll save you from buying yourself a $400 or $500, $600 track saw, which honestly you just don't need. I would love to buy one. I love buying new tools, but I just haven't been able to convince myself to do it. So I need to start breaking this 4x8 sheet of plywood down. And in order to do that, I've got to get these shims. Well, not shims. I've got some scrap 3/4 ply here, and I've got 4 pieces. And if you're doing this by yourself, you really want 4 pieces. And I'll show you why. You're gonna have 2 pieces on one side of your cut, and you're gonna have 2 pieces on the other side of your cut, and that's gonna keep your ply from dipping one way or the other as you reach the end of your cut. It'll keep it nice and flat, and then you won't have any tear out or anything like that. And it's super simple. You just lift up the ply, put your pieces underneath it, We're gonna put 2 on this side. And then we're gonna put 2 on this end. So I've got this piece of plywood sitting 3/4 of an inch above the rest of the plywood that I have underneath it. And that's plenty. As long as you make sure that you set your depth of your blade on your circular saw. And like I said, I have this cheapy, well, not cheap, but old skill saw with a nice fine finished Diablo blade on it, which gives me pretty nice results. If you want even nicer results, I suggest running a piece of painter's tape along the top of your cut. And I'll do that just to show you how easy that is and give you an idea of where I place the tape. But that'll help prevent any tear out. You'll get a nice clean cut, especially when you're using a high quality blade like this fine finish blade. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark out my first cut. And normally out of habit, I usually cut from this side going that way, but that would put my back towards you guys watching. So I'm going to cut from this side this time. And the first cut I need, it's kind of a strange cut that I've got for this dog feeder or this dog food bin that I'm making, where my software didn't organize it for me the way I usually like it, which is where each cut is along the width of the sheet. It mixed it up this time. So the first cut I have is basically a 32-inch cut. I've got 2 16-inch pieces I've got to take out of it, but it's a 32-inch cut. So as I mentioned before, here on my skill saw, or my circular saw, the distance between the inside of the blade and the edge of my fence here, or my guide, is exactly 1.5 inches. So wherever I mark my line to run against this guide, I need to add 1.5 inches to it. My first cut's going to be 32. Like I said, I'm going to add a 1/4 inch for play so that I can sneak up to those fits on the table saw. So we're going to have to add 2/30 to 2 1/4, add 1.5 inches. That's going to give us 33 3/4. And so I'll go ahead and mark that out on my sheet here. So 33 3/4. I'll do the same thing on this side, 33 3/4. Now again, when you're doing this by yourself, you know, sometimes this, well, not sometimes, every time, almost every time, this end block is going to move on you. So to keep from having to run around this piece all the time, I always put the clamp away from me first, and I'll set it down, and I'll slide this end stock in, or this end lock in. That way I know that I've got the right width. And then I can turn this around, and that slide lock there, it only goes one direction without actually disengaging the lock. It'll slide in all you want just by itself, but in order to pull it back, you've got to disengage it. So I can do that without screwing up my cut. I'm just going to double check my cut here. My measurement, I am indeed 33 3/4. Now to prevent a whole lot of chip out, you know, your circular saw blade, as you're pushing it this way, your saw blade is cutting up this way. That is kind of away from you. So if you're going to get splinters and cuts, you're most likely going to get it on the top side as that blade comes out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some painter's tape, and remember that my blade is 1.5 inches from the edge of this guide. So I'll just come over here and I'll give myself, you know, usually I'll just put like 3/4 of an inch between the tape and my guide. And I'll lay down just a piece of blue painter's tape. All right, just like that. So I've got this blue painter's tape taped here, about 3/4 of an inch distance gap between the guide and where I place the edge of the tape. And that, therefore, my blade should run down right down the middle of this tape. So we'll go ahead and cut this, and it's going to be super fast and super easy to do it this way. Now I went through all the trouble of telling you that you needed 4 pieces of this 3/4 inch underneath your work, and then I didn't do it myself. I left 1 piece here, so I only had 1 piece under my work. As I finished off that cut, you saw that the ply fell. You don't want that because it will tear off a piece at the end if you're not careful. But here's our cut with the painter's tape, and what you'll see is, and I don't know if you can see it, but I do have this little tab now that I'm going to have to clean up here where the edge of it just broke off, and I'll have to sand that down. But you'll see that when I take off this painter's tape, I have no splintering at all on this edge, and the back side is just as pretty, right? I can't think of the word right now. I had an old man moment, but no tear out along this cut, and the cut is nice and straight enough that I mean, it really is straight, but it's straight enough that I can clean up, I can sneak up on my final cuts on the table saw without any issue. That's really basically it for these Progrip guide clamps. And again, get them on Amazon. 115 bucks, a little more expensive than when I bought them, but they're a real lifesaver. And if you already have a table or a circular saw, then you'll save yourself a good amount of money. Save yourself $400 or $500 as opposed to get a track saw, which you can put towards I don't know, some other nice tool. All right, well that's it, and we'll see you next time.